Do you ever get the feeling that the world is laughing at you? Like you're invisible, replaceable. Just another face in the crowd waiting for permission to matter. They tell you to sit down, be realistic, stay small, and you smile like everything's fine. But here's the funny thing about the world. It loves a joke until the punchline hits back. For years, they underestimated you. They watched you struggle. They watched you fall. And now the whole world is about to watch you rise. Not quietly, not politely, not asking for approval. See, the world doesn't change when you ask nicely. It changes when you decide you've had enough. And today, this isn't just a speech. It's a warning. The whole world is about to watch you rise. They laughed at you when you dared to dream beyond your circumstances. Not because your vision was small, but because it was too big for their comfort. They saw your ambition as arrogance, your confidence as delusion, your persistence as stubbornness. Every smirk, every whisper, every sideways glance was their way of reminding you where they thought you belonged. In classrooms, in workplaces, in gatherings filled with hollow applause, you felt it, that quiet judgment wrapped in fake concern. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. People like us don't do that. Their laughter wasn't always loud. Sometimes it came disguised as advice. Sometimes it wore the mask of love. But you heard it clearly. They laughed when you failed the first time, and the second, and the third. They counted your mistakes like trophies, as if your setbacks confirmed their predictions. Every stumble became entertainment. Every rejection became proof that you should quit. They never saw the late nights. They never felt the pressure pressing against your chest when doubt tried to suffocate you. They only saw the surface, and on the surface, you were struggling. To them, you were a story that wouldn't succeed. A character written for mediocrity. They laughed because it was easier than believing. Believing in you would mean questioning their own limits. If you could rise, then what excuse would they have for staying still? So they chose comfort. They chose mockery. They chose to make you small so they could feel safe. It's strange how people protect their insecurities by attacking someone else's courage. They weren't really laughing at your potential. They were laughing at the fear of their own unrealized dreams. And maybe, for a moment, their laughter got to you. Maybe it echoed in your mind late at night. Maybe you replayed their words and wondered if they were right. Maybe you almost shrank yourself to fit their expectations. Almost. But something inside you refused to break. Every laugh became fuel. Every doubt became a spark. Every sarcastic comment became a silent promise that one day they would watch in silence instead. Because the truth about being laughed at is this: it means you're different. It means you stepped out of line while everyone else stayed comfortably invisible. It means you were bold enough to risk embarrassment, to risk failure, to risk being misunderstood. And that kind of risk terrifies people who never dare. Their laughter tried to label you. It tried to cage you. It tried to convince you that you were a joke. But jokes don't endure pressure the way you did. Jokes don't wake up after defeat with more hunger than before. Jokes don't transform humiliation into discipline. You did. Quietly. Patiently. Relentlessly. They laughed because they couldn't see the storm building behind your silence. They mistook your calm for weakness. They confused your patience with surrender. They didn't understand that sometimes the loudest victories are born in the quietest struggles. And while they were busy laughing, you were learning, growing, sharpening yourself in the shadows where no one bothered to look. Laughter fades. Discipline doesn't. Mockery disappears. Resilience remains. And one day, when the sound of their laughter is replaced by the silence of disbelief, they will realize something powerful. They weren't watching a joke. They were witnessing the beginning of a rise they were too blind to recognize. You suffered in silence, and no one noticed because you never made a spectacle of your pain. You mastered the art of smiling while everything inside you was cracking. You learned how to nod when people assumed you were fine. You became fluent in the language of, "I'm okay," even when you were anything but. The world saw your calm face, your steady walk, your quiet presence. It never saw the storms you carried within. There were nights when the noise in your mind was louder than any crowd. Doubt whispered constantly, replaying every failure, every rejection, every moment you felt less than enough. You questioned your worth in rooms where you had to pretend you belonged. You questioned your strength when obstacles kept appearing without warning. And still, you said nothing. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you refused to let your pain become your identity. You suffered when people misunderstood you, when they judged your silence as weakness, when they assumed your quiet nature meant you lacked ambition. They never realized that silence can be a battlefield, that some of the fiercest wars are fought without sound. You were fighting expectations, fear, insecurity, and exhaustion all at once. And you did it without applause. There were sacrifices no one clapped for, opportunities you let go of to build something greater. Moments when you chose discipline over comfort. While others were resting, you were working. While others were celebrating small victories, you were rebuilding from losses. Your silence was not emptiness. It was preparation. It was strategy. It was survival. You carried disappointment without letting it poison you. You carried criticism without letting it define you. You absorbed negativity and turned it inward, reshaping it into determination. It would have been easier to complain, to blame, to shout about unfairness. But you didn't. You endured. You watched. You learned. Every painful experience became a lesson carved into your character. Sometimes the silence felt heavy. It felt lonely. You wondered if anyone would ever truly understand the weight you were carrying. You watched others express their struggles openly, while you chose restraint. Not because you didn't trust anyone, but because you trusted yourself more. You believed that strength grows in quiet spaces, that resilience forms in the dark, where no one is watching. You suffered in silence when progress was slow, when effort didn't immediately produce results, when you gave your best and still fell short. Those were the moments that tested you the most. Not the loud failures, but the quiet disappointments. The times when you questioned if all this endurance was worth it. And every time, you chose to continue. Your silence became your shield. It protected your dreams from doubt. It protected your growth from distraction. It allowed you to focus without seeking validation. While others needed recognition to keep going, you learned to move without it. You became self-sustaining, powered by something deeper than praise. Pain has a way of shaping people. It can harden them or refine them. You let it refine you. You let it sharpen your patience. You let it deepen your understanding. You let it strengthen your will. And through every silent struggle, you built something within yourself that noise could never destroy. The world may not have heard your suffering, but it will see the strength it created. You stopped asking for permission the day you realized no one was ever going to hand you approval for becoming who you were meant to be. For years, you waited. You waited for validation. For someone to say, "Yes, you're ready." For a sign that it was your turn. You looked around, hoping the world would nod in agreement before you took your step forward. But the world stayed silent. And in that silence, something inside you shifted. You began to notice how often you shrank yourself to fit other people's comfort. How you softened your voice so it wouldn't intimidate. How you adjusted your dreams so they sounded reasonable. You edited your ambition to make it digestible. You filtered your confidence so it wouldn't be mistaken for arrogance. Every time you asked for permission, you were really asking, "Is it okay if I become more?" And too often, the answer was hesitation. You saw how permission works. It keeps people waiting. It keeps them dependent. It keeps them standing at doors that were never meant to open from the outside. You realized that some people would never approve of your growth because your growth disrupts their expectations. If you rise, the story they wrote about you falls apart. And not everyone is ready to rewrite their narrative. So you stopped waiting. You stopped explaining your goals to those who didn't understand them. You stopped seeking reassurance before making bold moves. You stopped apologizing for wanting more. It wasn't rebellion. It was clarity. You understood that ambition does not require consensus. Vision does not require validation. And growth does not require approval. There was a risk in that decision. When you stop asking for permission, you stand alone. There's no safety net of agreement. No comforting chorus telling you you're doing the right thing. Just your instincts, your belief, your courage. You learn to trust your own judgment, to make decisions without polling the room, to move forward even when no one clapped at the beginning. You noticed something powerful happen when you stopped asking. Your steps became firmer. Your voice became steadier. Your actions became decisive. Doubt still existed, but it no longer controlled you. Because doubt feeds on hesitation, and hesitation thrives on seeking approval. Once you removed the need for permission, you removed the pause that used to hold you back. People reacted differently. Some admired your boldness. Others felt threatened by it. When you no longer ask for permission, you remind others that they don't need it either, and that realization can be uncomfortable. It exposes excuses. It challenges comfort zones. It forces reflection. But you weren't responsible for managing their reactions. You were responsible for managing your growth. You began to understand that permission is often just fear wearing polite clothing. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of standing out. By refusing to ask, you confronted those fears directly. You accepted that mistakes might happen, that criticism might come, that not everyone would understand your choices, and you moved anyway. There's a quiet power in self-authorization, in waking up and deciding that your dreams are valid because you believe in them, in taking action without waiting for the world to agree, in owning your path without apology. It doesn't make you reckless, it makes you free. Free from approval, free from limitation, free from invisible chains you once placed on yourself. And once you tasted that freedom, there was no going back to waiting outside doors that were never locked in the first place. You turned pain into power when you decided that suffering would not be the end of your story, but the material that built it. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every sleepless night became raw energy waiting to be redirected. Pain has a strange weight to it. If you let it sit, it crushes you. If you carry it without purpose, it exhausts you. But if you reshape it, if you channel it, it transforms into something unstoppable. There were moments when the hurt felt unfair, when you gave loyalty and received betrayal, when you gave effort and received rejection, when you gave love and received silence. Those moments could have hardened your heart completely. They could have turned you bitter, cynical, closed off. Instead, you let them teach you. You let them sharpen your awareness. You learned who to trust. You learned where to invest your energy. You learned that strength is not about avoiding pain, but about mastering it. Pain forced you to grow in ways comfort never could. Comfort keeps you still. Pain pushes you to adapt. When doors closed, you didn't just stand there staring at them. You studied the lock. You looked for windows. You built new entrances. Each setback demanded creativity. Each failure demanded resilience. And with every demand, you rose stronger than before. You stopped seeing pain as punishment. You began seeing it as preparation. Every criticism became feedback. Every insult became motivation. Every moment of doubt from others became proof that you were walking a path few dared to take. The same experiences that once broke you began building you. The same tears that once blurred your vision began clearing it. You realized something powerful. Pain reveals what truly matters. When everything feels easy, you don't question your priorities. But when it hurts, when you struggle, you discover what you're willing to fight for. You discovered your standards, your boundaries, your limits, and once you knew them, you refused to compromise them again. There were days when turning pain into power meant simply getting up. When strength looked like discipline instead of drama. When progress looked like persistence instead of applause. You worked quietly. You trained your mind to respond instead of react. You replaced emotional chaos with focused action. Instead of lashing out, you leveled up. People may have expected you to break, to quit, to fall into resentment. They expected your wounds to weaken you. They didn't anticipate that those same wounds would become armor. That every scar would remind you not of what hurt you, but of what you survived. Survival itself became a source of confidence. Pain also deepened you. It gave you empathy. It made you aware of silent battles others fight. It expanded your perspective. True power is not loud aggression, it is controlled intensity. It is knowing you've endured worse, and still choosing to move forward with purpose. It is standing tall not because life was easy, but because it was hard, and you refused to stay down. You transformed emotion into drive, anger into ambition, sadness into strategy, fear into fuel. The energy never disappeared, it simply changed direction, and once redirected, it propelled you forward faster than comfort ever could. Power born from pain carries a different weight. It's not fragile. It's not easily shaken. It's built from experience, forged in difficulty, strengthened by endurance. And when that kind of power rises, it doesn't flicker. It burns steady and relentless. Now the world watches you rise, and the silence feels different. It's no longer the silence of doubt or dismissal. It's the silence of realization. The same eyes that once overlooked you are now fixed on you. The same voices that once questioned you are now quiet. There's something powerful about being observed after being underestimated. It changes the energy in the room. You didn't announce your transformation. You didn't demand attention. You built yourself quietly, piece by piece, while the world was distracted. And now the results speak in ways explanations never could. Confidence sits differently on you. It's not loud, not desperate for validation. It's steady, grounded, earned. People are curious now. They wonder when it happened, how it happened. They search for a moment they can point to, a turning point they must have missed. But the truth is, there was no single dramatic shift. There were hundreds of small decisions. Waking up when you didn't feel like it. Continuing when progress felt slow. Believing when doubt was easier. Rising isn't a sudden explosion. It's a controlled fire that's been burning for a long time. Some will celebrate you. Others will feel uncomfortable. Growth has a way of exposing insecurities in those who stayed still. When you rise, you unintentionally become a mirror. You reflect what is possible. And not everyone is ready to confront that reflection. But you didn't rise to make others comfortable. You rose because staying down was no longer an option. There's a shift in your posture now. In your words. In your presence. You no longer seek approval in conversations. You no longer shrink your opinions to fit in. You speak with clarity because you've lived through confusion. You move with purpose because you've known what it feels like to be lost. The rise isn't just external success, it's internal alignment. The world watches your consistency, your discipline, your refusal to return to who you used to be. That's what truly captures attention. Not a single achievement, but sustained elevation. It's easy to climb once. It's harder to stay elevated. And you've learned that rising isn't a moment. It's a mindset. There were times you imagined this view. Not in detail, but in feeling. You imagined what it would be like to stand firm, unshaken by noise. Now that you're here, you understand something deeper. The rise was never about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. About honoring the belief you protected when no one else saw it. The spotlight can be intimidating, but you are no longer intimidated. You've faced darker places than public attention. You've endured harder battles than scrutiny. The world's gaze doesn't scare you, because you've already survived your own self-doubt. And that was the toughest audience of all. And as they watch, some will begin their own journeys. Not because you told them to, but because your rise makes staying small feel impossible.